You're going to stay a fragile trader forever unless you learn to do hard things, and I don't mean hard like analyzing 10 indicators or watching 5 hours of tutorials. I mean the kind of hard that makes your hands sweat when you're about to press the button. The kind that makes your heart race when the market moves against you by 20 pips. The kind that whispers run every single time you're supposed to stay. That's the hard I'm talking about. And if you keep avoiding it, if you keep choosing the path that feels safe and comfortable and easy, you're building a version of yourself that will shatter the moment real pressure arrives. Let me tell you something most traders don't want to hear. You already know enough to be profitable. You've watched the videos, you've studied the patterns. You've back-tested enough to know what works. The problem isn't knowledge. The problem is you. Not your strategy, not the broker, not the market makers. You. And specifically, the part of you that refuses to do what's uncomfortable. You sit there every day, charts open, coffee getting cold, and you tell yourself you're waiting for the right setup. But deep down, you know the truth. You're waiting to feel ready. You're waiting to feel certain. You're waiting for that magical moment when fear disappears and discipline feels natural. That moment doesn't exist. It never has, and it never will. Think about the last time you had a perfect setup according to your rules. Everything aligned. The trend was clear, the risk was defined, the reward was worth it. But you hesitated. Maybe you opened the chart, hovered over the buy button, felt that familiar tightness in your chest, and told yourself you'd wait for one more confirmation. One more candle. One more sign. And then the trade moved without you, and you watched from the sidelines as exactly what you knew would happen, happened. You felt sick, didn't you? Not because you lost money, but because you knew you were supposed to act and you didn't. You failed yourself. Again. Or worse, maybe you did take the trade, but the moment it went a few pips against you, panic flooded in. Your plan said hold until the stop loss, but your hands were already moving, closing early, taking a small loss that didn't need to happen. You told yourself it was smart risk management, but it wasn't. It was fear dressed up as caution. And 5 minutes later, the trade reversed exactly where you thought it would. And you sat there staring at the screen, knowing you were right about the market but wrong about yourself. That's the cruel joke of trading. You can be right about everything except your own mind, and you'll still lose. Here's what's happening to you. And it's happening slowly, so slowly you don't even notice. Every time you avoid discomfort, every time you skip a trade, because it doesn't feel perfect, every time you break your plan because the emotion got too strong, you're training yourself, not to be better, to be weaker. Your brain is learning a very dangerous lesson. When things get hard, run. When pressure builds, collapse. When fear shows up, obey it. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're actually conditioning yourself to fail. And the worst part, this conditioning is invisible. You don't feel yourself getting weaker. You just wake up one day and realize you've been trading for 2 years and you're still in the exact same place. Same account size. Same mistakes. Same internal war. You tell yourself you'll change tomorrow. You'll be disciplined tomorrow. You'll follow the plan tomorrow. But tomorrow comes and nothing changes because you haven't changed. You're still the same person, carrying the same fears, making the same choices. You keep waiting for motivation to strike, for inspiration to hit, for some external force to suddenly make you different. But motivation is a lie. Motivation lasts about as long as the feeling you get after watching a good trading documentary, maybe a few hours, maybe a day, and then it's gone. What you need isn't motivation. What you need is to become the kind of person who does hard things even when every cell in your body is screaming not to. Let me take you inside the mind of a trader who stays fragile. This trader wakes up, checks the charts, sees some potential setups, but decides to wait because it's early and things could change. The morning passes. A good setup forms, but there's news coming out later, so better to wait. The news passes, the setup is still valid, but now the trader is thinking, maybe the move already happened. Maybe it's too late. Another hour passes. Finally, a new setup appears. This one feels different. This one feels certain. The trader enters, heart pounding, and the trade immediately goes 5 pips against them. Panic. The plan says the stop loss is at 20 pips, but 5 pips feels like 50. The trader closes, takes the small loss, tells themselves it was smart, then watches as the trade reverses and runs exactly to target without them. The trader doesn't enter the next setup because they're still hurt from the last one. The day ends. No significant trades taken. No rules followed. No progress made. And the trader goes to sleep telling themselves tomorrow will be different. It won't be. Not unless something fundamental changes. Now let me show you what's happening beneath the surface. In the parts of your mind you can't see but that control everything you do. Your brain was built millions of years ago for a very specific purpose: survival. Not success, not growth, not wealth, just survival. And back when your ancestors were running from predators and fighting for food, the brain developed a simple but powerful rule. Avoid pain, seek pleasure, conserve energy. That rule kept humans alive. But that same rule is destroying you as a trader. Because in trading, the things that feel safe are usually dangerous, and the things that feel dangerous are usually safe. Taking a loss feels like pain, so your brain screams at you to avoid it. Letting a winner run feels uncertain, so your brain pushes you to take profit early and lock in the good feeling. Entering a trade when you're scared feels like stepping into danger, so your brain floods you with doubt and hesitation. Your brain doesn't understand that a small controlled loss is part of the process. It doesn't understand that uncertainty is where edge lies. It doesn't understand that discomfort is the price of growth. All it knows is this feeling is uncomfortable, make it stop. And if you listen to that voice every single time, you'll never break free. You'll be a slave to an ancient operating system that's completely incompatible with modern trading. Every trader I've ever met who struggled long-term had one thing in common. They let their feelings make their decisions. They didn't have a system they trusted more than their emotions. They didn't have an identity strong enough to override the fear. They were smart, educated, capable people who became children the moment they opened a live chart. And I'm not saying that to insult anyone. I'm saying it because it's true. When you avoid hard things, you stay emotionally young. You stay fragile. You operate from a nervous system that hasn't been trained. And when the market applies pressure, you fold. Not because you're weak, but because you've never built the strength. Here's the part that's going to sting, but you need to hear it. The reason you're not consistent isn't bad luck. It's not the market. It's not your strategy. It's that you refuse to suffer the right way. You're willing to suffer through regret, through frustration, through watching trades move without you, through the slow agony of going nowhere for months. That's suffering you'll accept. But the suffering of entering when you're scared, the suffering of holding when it's uncomfortable, the suffering of cutting a loss exactly where you said you would even though it hurts, that's suffering you avoid. And that's the only suffering that would actually make you better. Think about it like this. If you want to build muscle, you have to lift weights. And lifting weights hurts. Your muscles burn, they tear, they ache. But that pain is the signal of growth. If you only lifted weights that felt comfortable, you'd never get stronger. Trading is the same. The emotional discomfort you feel when you do the right thing is the burn. It's the signal that you're growing. But most traders feel that burn and immediately stop. They put the weight down. They step back. They wait for it to feel easier. And it never does, because they never built the capacity. You want to know what separates a consistently profitable trader from someone who's been stuck for years? It's not intelligence. It's not capital. It's not even strategy. It's nervous system conditioning. The profitable trader has been through enough discomfort that their baseline tolerance is higher. They've taken enough losses, according to plan that loss doesn't trigger panic anymore. They've sat through enough pullbacks that a 20-pip drawdown feels like noise. They've resisted enough FOMO that watching a move without them doesn't destroy their day. They're not better people. They're just more trained. They've done the hard things enough times that the hard things became normal. Let me tell you what happens when you start doing hard things intentionally. At first, It feels impossible. You set a rule. I will not move my stop loss no matter what. The first trade comes, price approaches your stop, and every instinct in your body is screaming to move it, to give it more room, to avoid the loss. Your hand is shaking. You're sweating. The voice in your head is so loud. Just this once. Just move it a little. But you don't. You sit there, and you let the stop get hit. And it hurts. It feels terrible. You close the platform, you walk away, and you feel like you just lost something important. But here's what actually happened. You won. You didn't win money, but you won something more valuable. You proved to yourself that you can override the fear. You showed your brain that discomfort doesn't kill you. That's a data point. One piece of evidence that starts to shift your identity. The second time it's still hard, but it's 5% easier. The third time 10% easier. By the 10th time, you're still uncomfortable, but you're no longer controlled by it. You've built a new pathway in your brain. Fear shows up, but it doesn't make the decision anymore. You do. And that's when trading starts to change. Not because the market got easier, but because you got stronger. But here's where most people fail. They try to do hard things randomly. They wake up one day and decide, today I'm going to be disciplined, and then they try to hold a massive position through a huge drawdown and their nervous system collapses. That's not training. That's trauma. You don't build strength by jumping straight to the heaviest weight. You build it gradually. You start with small, hard things, and you increase the difficulty over time. This is called progressive overload, and it works in trading just like it works in the gym. Start small. If you can't hold a trade according to plan, start by holding it for just 5 minutes longer than you want to. Not the whole trade, just 5 minutes. Feel the discomfort. Sit with it. Let it pass. Then next time, 10 minutes. Then 30. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to expand your tolerance range 1 degree at a time. If you struggle with FOMO, start by letting one good-looking trade pass without entering. Just one. Watch it move, feel the pull, and stay out anyway. It'll feel like torture, but you'll survive. And the next time, it'll be slightly easier. That's growth. If you can't take losses without spiraling, start by taking one small controlled loss, and then immediately walking away. Don't try to make it back. Don't analyze what went wrong. Just take the loss, close the platform, and do something else. You're teaching your brain that loss is not death. You're breaking the association between losing and catastrophe. Over weeks and months, these small acts accumulate. They compound. And one day you look up and realize you're doing things that used to terrify you, and you're doing them calmly. Not because you're fearless, but because you're familiar with fear. The biggest lie in trading is that you need to eliminate emotion to succeed. You don't. You need to change your relationship with emotion. Emotion is information. Fear tells you there's risk. Greed tells you there's opportunity. Frustration tells you something isn't working. These are signals, not commands. The problem is most traders treat emotions like orders from a superior officer. Fear says stop, and they stop. Greed says more, and they add size. They're remote-controlled by their feelings. But a mature trader listens to the emotion, acknowledges it, and then asks a different question. What does my plan say to do here? And then they do that, regardless of how they feel. This is the hard thing nobody wants to talk about. You can feel afraid and still execute. You can feel greedy and still stay disciplined. You can feel uncertain and still follow your rules. The feeling and the action are separate. But you've been living as if they're the same thing. You've been waiting to feel brave before you act bravely. You've been waiting to feel disciplined before you act disciplined. And you'll wait forever because feelings don't lead. Actions do. You act first and the feelings follow. You enter the trade scared, and after you do it 10 times, the fear gets quieter. You hold through discomfort, and after you do it 20 times, discomfort becomes your baseline. You are literally reconditioning your nervous system through repeated action. But most traders never get there because they quit too early. They try discipline for 3 days, it feels hard, nothing changes, and they go back to old habits. They don't understand that change happens below the surface first. You don't see it. You just feel the same struggle day after day. And then one day, usually after weeks of consistency, something shifts. You take a loss and you don't feel destroyed. You skip a FOMO trade and you don't feel regret. You follow your plan and it feels almost normal. That shift is real. But it only comes after you've banked enough repetitions. You can't shortcut it. You can't think your way to it. You have to live it. Let me tell you about revenge trading, because this is where fragile traders break completely. You take a loss. It stings. You feel angry. You feel stupid. You feel like the market just disrespected you. And immediately, without thinking, you're scanning for the next trade. Not because there's a setup, because you want to feel better. You want to erase the loss. You want to prove you're not wrong. So you enter something marginal, something that barely qualifies, and you size up because you need to make it back fast. The trade goes against you. Now you're down even more. The anger turns into desperation. You enter again, bigger. You're not trading anymore. You're gambling. You're trying to outrun pain with more pain. And by the end of the session, you've blown a week's progress or worse. You close the laptop, and you sit there feeling hollow, knowing you just self-destructed. Again, why does this happen? Because you never learned to sit with discomfort. The moment the loss happened, discomfort spiked, and your only coping mechanism was action. Do something, anything, to make this feeling go away. But the right move after a loss isn't another trade. It's nothing. It's sitting still. It's letting the feeling be there without reacting to it. That's the hard thing. Not taking another trade, but not taking another trade. Doing nothing when your whole body is screaming do something. That restraint, that capacity to pause in the middle of emotional chaos. That's what separates traders who last from traders who blow up. You have to build what I call an emotional recovery system. This is a set of actions you take after pressure events to bring yourself back to baseline before you make another decision. It's not complicated. After a loss, you pause. You don't look for another setup. You don't open another chart. You close the platform, you step away, and you do something that physically calms your nervous system. Maybe you go for a walk. Maybe you do breathing exercises. Maybe you just sit in silence for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it interrupts the reactive loop. You're giving your brain time to process the emotion instead of suppressing it or acting on it. And only after you've returned to calm do you come back and ask, is there a valid setup now? Most of the time, there isn't. And that's fine, because you just saved yourself from a revenge trade that would have cost you more than the original loss. This is a skill. It's not something you're born with. It's something you train. And every time you successfully pause after a loss, every time you resist the urge to immediately make it back, you're building emotional muscle. You're proving to yourself that you can tolerate negative feelings without collapsing into destructive behavior. That proof compounds. And after enough repetitions, revenge trading stops being your default response. Not because you don't feel the urge, but because you've trained a stronger response. Now let's talk about the comfort zone, because I think most traders misunderstand what it actually is. Your comfort zone isn't a place of safety. It's a place of stagnation disguised as safety. When you stay inside your comfort zone in trading, you feel like you're protecting yourself. You're not taking big risks. You're not doing anything crazy. You're playing it safe. But here's the truth. The market doesn't stay the same. Volatility shifts, trends change. Your psychological tolerance doesn't stay static. And if you're always operating at the same level of challenge, you're not staying still. You're falling behind. Because the market is dynamic and you're static. Your comfort zone has an expiration date. What feels safe today will eventually become inadequate. The position size that felt comfortable 6 months ago might now be too small to make meaningful progress. The strategy that worked in low volatility might fail in high volatility. The emotional tolerance you built when you were trading micro lots won't hold when you scale up. And if you never push the edges of your comfort zone, you'll hit a ceiling and you won't know why. You'll feel stuck. You'll keep doing the same things and getting the same results. And you'll blame the market or your strategy or bad luck. But the real problem is you stop growing. Growth only happens at the edge of discomfort. Not in the middle of chaos where you're overwhelmed and panicking, but right at the edge, where you're uncomfortable, but still in control. That's the zone where your brain is forced to adapt. That's where you build new capacity. If you're never uncomfortable, you're never growing. And in trading, if you're not growing, you're dying. Slowly, quietly, but dying nonetheless. So how do you expand your comfort zone without breaking? You do it gradually. You find the next small challenge, the next slightly harder thing, and you do it consistently until it becomes normal. Then you find the next one. Maybe today your challenge is holding a trade for 30 minutes without checking it obsessively. Next week, it's holding for an hour. The month after, it's holding overnight. You're not trying to become a completely different trader in one day. You're trying to become 1% more capable each week. And those 1% improvements compound into transformations you can't imagine from where you're standing now. Let me tell you what happens when you don't do this. When you avoid discomfort for long enough, you become what I call a fragile trader. A fragile trader looks fine on calm days. They can follow their rules when the market is slow and setups are clean. But the moment real pressure hits, a losing streak, a volatile session, an unexpected news event, they shatter. They abandon their plan, they overtrade, they freeze, they spiral. And afterward, they can't understand why they fell apart. They thought they were disciplined. But they were only disciplined in easy conditions. They never trained for hard conditions. So when hard conditions arrived, they had no capacity to handle them. Compare that to an anti-fragile trader. An anti-fragile trader doesn't just survive pressure. They get better because of it. A losing streak doesn't break them. It sharpens them. It makes them more focused, more careful, more intentional. Volatility doesn't scare them. It wakes them up. They've been through enough hard things that their nervous system doesn't interpret pressure as danger anymore. It interprets pressure as opportunity to demonstrate what they've built. They're not calm because nothing bothers them. They're calm because they've trained themselves to function inside discomfort. You become anti-fragile by deliberately exposing yourself to small doses of stress in a controlled way. Just like a vaccine, you introduce a small amount of the virus so your immune system learns to fight it. In trading, you introduce small challenges, small losses, small moments of discomfort, and you train yourself to handle them without breaking. Over time, your tolerance expands. What used to feel unbearable becomes manageable. And then one day, you're in the middle of a drawdown that would have destroyed the old version of you, and you're still executing calmly. Not because you're special, but because you trained for this. Most traders spend all their time trying to find a strategy that doesn't require emotional resilience. They want a system that only gives easy trades, that never loses, that doesn't trigger fear. That system doesn't exist. Every strategy will put you in uncomfortable situations. Every approach will test your discipline. The question is not how to avoid discomfort. The question is how strong can you become so that discomfort doesn't control you. Here's a truth that'll save you years if you accept it. Your strategy is probably fine. Your edge is probably real. Your problem is execution. And execution is a nervous system issue, not a knowledge issue. You don't need more information. You need more capacity. And capacity is built through doing hard things repeatedly until your nervous system adapts. There's no shortcut. There's no hack. There's only exposure, repetition, and time. Think about the traders you admire, the ones who seem effortlessly calm, who take losses without flinching, who hold winners without panic. They weren't born that way. They built that. Through hundreds of trades where they felt fear and acted anyway. Through dozens of losing streaks where they stayed disciplined. Through countless moments where they wanted to quit and didn't. You're seeing the result of years of hard things compounded. And you can build the same thing, but only if you start doing the hard things now. Every day you avoid discomfort is a day you stay the same. Every day you choose the easy path is a day you reinforce fragility. But every day you do one hard thing, you move the needle. You prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And that proof, that evidence, is what builds confidence. Not fake confidence from winning trades. Real confidence from knowing you can handle whatever the market throws at you because you've trained for it. Let me give you a practical framework. Every trading day, identify one hard thing you're going to do. Not a trade, a behavior. Maybe today the hard thing is you're going to take your first loss without looking at the charts for the next hour. Maybe tomorrow the hard thing is you're going to let a winner run past your usual exit point. Maybe the next day the hard thing is you're not going to trade at all even though you feel the itch. One hard thing per day, that's it. Do it, journal it, and move on. Over a month, that's 30 repetitions of doing hard things. Over a year, that's 365. You think you'll be the same person after 365 days of deliberately practicing discomfort. You won't be. You'll be unrecognizable. But here's the catch. You have to actually do it. Not think about it, not plan to do it, not wait until you feel ready. You have to do it scared, do it uncomfortable, do it imperfectly. Because action is the only thing that creates change. You can read every trading psychology book ever written, and if you don't take action, nothing changes. You'll just be someone who knows a lot about discipline, but has none of it. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds exhausting. This sounds like constant suffering. But it's not. Once you've done enough hard things, they stop being hard. They become your new normal. And then you find new edges to push. That's the beautiful part. You don't suffer forever. You suffer intentionally for a season, and then you live from a higher baseline for the rest of your career. The traders who are miserable long-term are the ones who never push through the discomfort. They stay fragile, so every trade is stressful. Every loss is devastating. Every session is a battle. That's exhausting. What I'm describing is hard upfront, but easier long-term. You have a choice right now. You can keep doing what you've been doing, staying inside your comfort zone, avoiding hard things, hoping that one day it'll click. Or you can accept that the only way forward is through discomfort. You can decide that starting today, you're going to do one hard thing every single day, and you're going to build a version of yourself that's strong enough to succeed in this market. The first path is familiar. The second path is terrifying. But only one of them leads somewhere new. Do hard things in trading, or stay a fragile trader forever. That's not a threat. It's just the reality. The market doesn't reward comfort. It rewards capacity. And capacity is built in the fire of intentional discomfort. You already know what you need to do. The question is, will you do it?